Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of What Makes You Click. And I'm really pleased today to have with me the person who kicked off my clinical animal behaviour career by giving a lecture down in Bristol in the sort of mid to late 80s, Roger Mugford. So welcome, Roger. Lovely to see you.
It's fantastic to be on a trip to Lincoln without actually having to put up with those dreadful roads.
Yeah, and you look well.
So it's all my. I'm feeling well. I'm getting younger actually. I keep taking the medicines, and work suits me very well. But I'm really sorry that I introduced you to this awful area of human-animal interactions. I shall put it on my gravestone. Sorry, Danny.
But it was. I mean, I found the veterinary degree absolutely mind-numbingly horrible because it was just learn this, and then with behaviour, and it sort of started with Christine Nicol lecturing us on welfare. She was just sort of
wonderful.
Yeah, and she was sort of telling us, well, you got to think about these things. And just about everybody else in our year hated her lectures, and I loved them. And then you gave this guest lecture, and I was thinking, yeah, I like this. And so I went and saw practice with you for the best part of a week. Got bitten by your dog.
You thought this beats work. Oh yeah, and you can get bitten as a bonus as well.
Yeah, I got bitten by, I think it was a Briard. It wasn't your dog. It belonged to somebody else at your place.
Yeah, right.
Was it a Briard, I think?
It was. We had well, there was a patient, a client. But I mean, first rule of thumb is let the poor devils see, so cut the hair over their eyes so that they can at least accurately bite instead of fuzzing around and missing a bite.
Yeah,
because every Briard is designed to be biting.
And then you gave me this long list of people, and you said, look, if you want to do this seriously, there isn't anybody much in the UK. Go off to the States. And you gave me this long list of people, and I wrote to them, scribbled on aerograms as they were in those days, the little blue paper, tissue paper.
Don't give away your age.
Yeah, well, people won't know what these things are. And to my amazement, lots of them wrote back, and I spent a summer touring the States, and the rest is history, as they say.
Right. So let me guess. Was it Ben Hart was on the list? Was he?
Yeah. So
good.
Ben, Amy Marder, Kathy Hout, Ian Dunbar,
Victoria Voith.
No, she was on the list, but she'd just left Penn, and she replied and said she was sort of in between positions, so I didn't get to see her.
Okay.
But Amy Marder replied, and I slightly screwed up that because I got my dates wrong for the flight back, and so I missed seeing her while I was over there. Eric Klinghammer, I spent some time at Wolf Park with as well. And where else did I go? Can't remember. I met up with Pat Malise, but that was through Ian. He said, well, you ought to go and see practice with Pat Malise as well. But, and I've kept in touch with...
Mike Fox was there as well.
Yeah, but...
He was in the...
Yeah,
Washington.
Didn't get to see him, unfortunately. But anyway, I had a great summer, but we're here to chat about you. And I know that you did your first degree and your PhD in Hull, which is not far from me. So I'm sure you love this part of the world. What I didn't realize is that you actually spent some time in Pennsylvania afterwards.
Yeah, I've been a taste and smell person.
Was that with Dick Doty then?
And so Dick Doty is a good old mate of mine, and he has some fairly caustic things to say about pheromones. And at that time, I really thought that I'd discovered the number one mammalian pheromone that changed the social behaviour of mice, which is obviously a task and a challenge of world-breaking importance. People really want to know about how mice can fart and piss and change the behaviour of other mice. So I went to Manel, and it's a great research institution, and of course I was very at home with lots of people looking at marmoset marking and guinea pig vocalization, and Dick Doty himself, and also using dogs at Brown University, a link. There was a really interesting study going on looking at defining the absolute detection threshold of dogs. And one dog whose name escapes me, a German Shepherd, got down to 10 to the minus 14 for alpha ionone detection, which is about one molecule in a room the size that I'm sitting in today. So so it's good stuff.
Yeah, no, it's an area that's really taking off, I think, now with the research, the dog olfaction. But so then you went and worked with Mars Pedigree Pet Foods.
Bless them.
And then you went solo.
Yeah, I went ape, as they say, or native. No, I enjoyed being in Mars, but I really am not designed to be a fish in a big pool. I'd much rather be a small fish in my own pool. And so I took a decision to leave corporate life. And I was actually stimulated to look at this whole area about canine behavioural problems and to an extent feline behavioural problems, because I'd done some market research on behalf of Mars, looking at why would you not replace, or what will you do when your present bonzo or pussy passes away? Will you get another dog? And full 10% of dog owners said, no way. You know, he's been a bastard, this dog. You know, I've got no friends coming anymore. You know, look at the state of my door. It's ripped out of the letterbox, and he's bitten my next door neighbour, and he's aggressive to dogs, and he pulls on the lead, and I can't take him anywhere, and he pees. And so at least 10% had serious behavioural problems, and that would prevent them from contemplating replacing this dog in the event of its death. Others, obviously, old age and other reasons, financial reasons, perhaps wouldn't replace the dog once it had died. Interestingly, amongst cat owners, it was about 2% would not replace their cat because of behavioural problems. So behavioural issues, to me at that stage, were much more a dog-focused issue than a cat-focused issue. And that remains my impression. Cat owners tend to be more satisfied, or perhaps they're just more tolerant of their pet's behaviour and misbehaviours than our dog owners.
Yeah. So yeah, when I did the podcast with Vicky Voice, she said that she met with you, and then it seemed literally a matter of weeks. Suddenly you set up this company. It seemed to all happen very quickly, she said. But,
yeah, I didn't hang around. The intention of it was actually purely as a research project that I couldn't do, not for any organizational reasons, but it would have been impossible to do the research within a Mars, a corporate context. And it was simply to find out how much did vets know about behavioral issues and what source of problems presented to vets. Yeah, that's right. And it wasn't with the intention of treating the bloody things, you know, so I sent out questionnaires asking people like Bruce Fogel and Mike Finley, who's a practitioner, sadly departed this world, and Keith Butts, also sadly departed. But these were big fans of mine and sent me lots of cases. But I said, no, I want you to tell me about your cases. Don't send them to me for treatment. So, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to read up my Ben Hart and all his fantastic articles in vet practice and learn about the practice of applied animal behavior therapy, and that's what I had to do, and the rest is sort of history.
So it wasn't it wasn't an ambition to do this. It just sort of fell on your lap.
Yeah. In order to really get a grasp on what sort of behavioral problems would lead to that statement that I would never replace Bonzo when he passes, then the only way to do it was to offer some tangible support and assistance. And then I conjured up the reality that, look, you know, there's been so much good ethological work done, and from the time of Pavlov, instrumental and classical conditioning stuff from Skinner and the like, that isn't it about time we applied some of these established learning principles and take them out of the laboratory and apply them to the fireside, to the hearth, where real people live with their real pets. And so the idea of applied animal behavior therapy or applied animal ethology was born in my little head. I'd already published a number of papers on pet-people interactions, and one was on elderly people who I kitted out with a budgerigar, a little pet parakeet, and others with a houseplant to the same value when purchased at a pet store versus a florist. And of course, people quickly got bored with their begonias. Their begonias died, as all plants do. But the budgies maintained social skills and verbal skills in these elderly people, which was a study done in Hull, actually. And it's still one of the classic studies on the effects of animal-people interactions. And we actually applied, good old things like chi-squared, and did a proper statistical analysis. And so it was the first quantifiable study on the benefits of pet ownership, which was then followed by, now there are books this thick on the animal conferences of pet people practitioners. So I knew that we were doing something that was socially important for the good of humankind. And I remain of that view. I think that any of us who work with animals, be they dog trainers, be they veterinarians, university teachers like yourself, and obviously veterinarians, we are part of a really important social support system for people who would otherwise perhaps not find so much happiness in life, and some would be very, very unhappy in life. And of course, that's never been more apparent than in the last lockdown era of the last year, when apparently pet keeping is massively important and massively grown in numbers, probably of the order 20% increase in dog ownership in the last year.
I was chatting with James Sapel last week, and I was telling him I've got a PhD student at the moment, and she's been looking at sort of what is it that people actually do with their pet that affects their perception of their quality of life and their happiness. And one of the interesting things is she's also replicated the interviews now with a group of autistic people. And one of the things that came through from the population of people with autism is the number of times people said, and the dog has saved my life, stopped me from killing myself, we just, I think, really can underestimate just how valuable the animals can be in our relationship with them in helping people.
The charity Dogs for Autism is a British charity, and they've just invited me to be the patron. I hate being patrons of charities, but I think I'll be warned. Dogs for Good, of course, had a long running. You were involved in some of the analysis of their data, and I remember your presentation 4 or 5 years ago, just really persuasive, wasn't it? God bless that Danny Mills at Lincoln University. He's all right, that bloke.
You're very flattering, as always. So I know you see yourself as a farmer first and foremost. I mean, have you still got the Devon Cows?
Yes.
Keep the breed, because it's a rare breed.
Have you got the
Devons or South Devons?
I've got South Devons.
You've got South Devons.
So ruby red. I've got a ruby red bull, and they go together. The north meets the south, and I get these beautiful calves. And they start off life in Surrey, and then I trail down the M4 with 6 or more in the back of my trailer. But some people go up and down the M4 to Devon with a dog or so, a pet on board, and I go with my pet cows in the back of my Land Rover. And I've had today has been a very big day, very successful day in the life of Roger Mugford. So I had one ewe with triplets, another ewe with twins, both of which died. They were premature, so they just faded away. So mother, what you do is you take one of the triplets to give to the one who's lost her twins. Now you do that by skinning one of the dead lambs and sticking it on the live one. It's ghastly. It's never worked before, and I've done it 3 or 4 times. It never worked. But I did it on Saturday and removed the horrible, smelly, stinky skin today, Monday. And they're bonded, and they're little one of triplets. And it's a tricky old process and not a pleasant process. I hope the viewers haven't turned off from this website. Horrors of sheep mothering, but it actually, and of course, it's all about olfaction. very much about the recognition from the anal area, and they particularly focus around the tail of their lambs, and they recognize one lamb from a stranger lamb that they'll reject on the basis of anogenital area sniffing. And that's the bit you have to transfer from the dead lamb to the one you want adopted. So anyway, today was a big success. But every day we have to have one success at least.
Yeah, something to celebrate. Well, it's nice to know all your pheromone work has finally come to fruition.
I have to say I'm a big skeptic about mammalian pheromones, so get me on the subject of a certain company with the likes of OA, and I've been deeply skeptical about their data and those that jumped on that particular bandwagon. But the veterinary profession seemed to have been persuaded. I see so many cats that have been treated with OA for spraying issues, and I suppose I should only see the failed cases, because that's the nature of my work. I'm the last in line.
Well, that's the thing.
I'm a bit dubious about synthetic synthetic mammalian pheromones.
So, like you, that we don't see that as very many cat cases, but the ones we will see, people have tried it. But I mean, I remember when the first data came in and they presented me with the data, and this was in '95, and they said to me sort of, well, what should we do about this? And I said, well, you need to replicate this because these results look too good to be true. And so, and this was, as I say, mid-90s, and they said, okay, well, can you replicate it? And we said, we'll have a go. And yeah, we saw a similar sort of result. Now, what it will do is, for the majority of cats with urine spraying, you can reduce the frequency. If you want to completely stop, then, it's not as effective as using some of the other methods. And, it is part of a complex intervention. It's about just nudging the animal. It's part of the perceptual information and it creates those biases. For a lot of cases that might be sufficient. If there's overt aggression in the household, then we know that it's not as effective, and that makes sense, because if you're fighting with someone, then the pheromonal element is going to be less important to the sort of your perception overall of what is going on. But if they're used correctly, we get very, very good results. But again, people get lazy and they just use them and think, well, I'll just try the pheromone. I don't have to change anything else. Well, it's not going to work in that situation. As I said,
husbandry changes are the basis of managing that, and it may be that you've got an 8-cat household in a 1-bedroom apartment off the King's Road or something, which is an actual case that I dealt with years ago. And they're not going to stop spraying with so much competition for space and the like. But I don't think, and this isn't me cross-examining you, I promise. But has there been a double-blind trial done? In other words, exploring whether or not. I don't think there has.
There has, and we've even done a meta-analysis of all the studies that have been done. So so the data are there in that particular case. The problem, I mean, and it's partly sort of trying to get an insight into that has driven a lot of my research career to sort of think, well, actually, how do we represent emotions? How do individuals represent emotions? And what are going to be the effects of changing them through pheromones, or I say whether you want to call them pheromones or whatever, it doesn't really matter, and I don't want to get dragged into that argument. But we've got to get away from the idea from the 1950s that pheromones trigger behavior. Even in insects, we know that that's not true now. That they they're enormously affected, so they're part of the overall the input, and the animal responds accordingly. But anyway, so you sort of, we got off the topic of your farm. I'm not sure how it's because you were skinning sheep. You're too busy telling me about skinning sheep. I'm sure everybody loves that.
Lambs.
Lambs, yes. And you've also got horses now, but you don't ride, do you?
No. I'm very wary of horses. My wife's got the horse bug, and so we've got a livery yard with 12 very expensive pampered horses, and it has been an eye opener. I mean, I brought up on a farm. My father had 8 working horses, and my favorite was Damsel. And when I was about 3 years old, I would ride on Damsel as she was pulling a plough or harrows and this sort of thing. And so I was imprinted on horses from a very early age. And my father's 8 horses had to jolly well work, and they weren't pampered, and they were well cared for, and they didn't have laminitis, and they didn't have all these constant gut problems. But these ladies of a certain age keep their horses as pets. And they come and they spend 2 or 3 hours a day with them, and they sometimes lie in the stables with them. And of course, occasionally they can take them out for a canter and do a bit of jumping. And mostly these horses here are performance horses. And they are overfed and under-exercised and under-stimulated, and most of them insist on a very expensive horses not running in a herd, so completely against the sort of social habits and mythology of the species. They're herd animals, and surprise, surprise, they have lots of behavioural problems and lots of very big vet bills to go with it. So you can see I'm a bit on the outside in this horse yard here at my farm in Surrey. But my cows, they understand me, and I've got a fantastic North Devon bull called Mozart, and he and I have a special relationship. And when the going gets tough, my son Harry does ASMR, which he has literally tens of thousands of followers. Harry Mugford, look him up. And we're going to do an ASMR video of me and my bull and my pet sheep, and obviously my dogs and my cats, and it's going to be an ASMR for animal lovers. So, instead of the human being the leader in the ASMR video, they're very popular amongst a certain age group, not my age group, I might say. But anyway, it's all about relaxing. Look, mate's up. Oh, he says, Roger, oh, no, scratch a bit more there, No. Oh, Roger. And, I can turn this old bull into a state of paroxysm of pleasure. So anyway, I need some relief from the crazy world of dog and cat owners. And Mozart is my best relief. Do you have a similar such relief outlet, Daniel?
Yeah, I think I have the garden more than anything else.
Yeah, okay.
Well, get away from anything with 4 legs, and I'm fine. But
you do need. I mean, seriously, animal contact for me is in my blood, and I've got to have it, and I feel very denied.
I do enjoy being with clients, actually, and and I recognize the problems that they have, and just sort of I do get enormous satisfaction out of working with someone, and at the end of a consultation, as you sort of see them light up. So we try to turn, they come with a problem, and we try to turn that into an opportunity for them to learn more about their dog or cat or whatever.
Of course.
And reframe it as a much more positive thing, that okay, you've had these ones which were, everything went smoothly. Here's a chance for you to learn much more about dogs, etc. And seeing that weight lift off them, I think is I find really rewarding.
It is, but it's what we do isn't an indulgence. It's I would liken our profession as like a plumber. I've got a dripping tap, and do you want me to come and explain how water seals deteriorate and rubber deteriorates, and there's the pressure, water, it has to go from A to B on a downward hill from no, they would stop the bloody tap leaking, stop my aggression, my dog biting my child, or so I the thing that my orientation in life is to be very results outcome oriented, and I think it's not just enough to talk and to provide inspirations and insights from clients. They can get there some books or TV programs, but they want to have a positive outcome from their spend, because they're spending £200-300 with me, and they have every reason to feel cheated if things don't get better.
Oh, absolutely.
And of course,
no, and I agree with you entirely. But you've got to get people on board. I'm surprised you said they're spending 200 or 300 with you. They spend 400 or 500 with us.
Oh, I'm an old timer, you know. I mean, yesterday's money.
You're in London, that cheap place, as Lincolnshire. But it's about, it's bringing about that change in them. So you can, and I do think there's a tendency sometimes for people just to give the advice, and I'm not saying that you do this, but people just give the advice, and the owners are not in a state to actually be able to implement it. And working with an owner to bring about that change so that they can understand what is required and they can actually do what you want. And okay, I guess sort of you, and maybe that's one of the things that has driven you to, commercialize a lot of products as well to help in those situations. And we use them
very much.
Well. Yeah. But, and absolutely, people have got to they want to be satisfied, and it's not just about holding their hand and making them feel better, but it's about taking them on that journey and getting people properly prepared in order to implement the changes that we need them to do in relation to their animal, because they've got into habits of behaving in certain ways. And that's the side that I enjoy, that side of things.
We're very, very privileged to be doing the work we're doing, because many of our clients are at their most vulnerable, that they feel that they've failed, and they maybe be passed through somebody else's hands who's told them they're a failure. Oh, you're gorgeous. You just let that dog run all over you. You don't deserve a dog. It's never the dog's fault, and then you explain about the nature of animal learning and how clever and manipulative dogs are. And the smallest gesture, inappropriately timed, can reinforce an unwanted behavior. And the multitude of factors, and different family members are in conflict over the same issues. And everyone's got a different theory. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful vehicle for creating a change in the outlook of families, because many of the people we see are very stressed indeed. By the way, are you using, as I am increasingly, digital online consultations, because clearly at the moment we're not we're not at all open. We've had lockdown, and I've, as a vehicle for providing the work we do, the solutions that we try to achieve, it's been quite successful, and much less taxing on our travel, on the client's travel. People spoil us with lots of videos and tours around the house, and different family members can participate, whereas maybe they can't all come to a meeting here at Chertsey. So it's to open my eyes to. I was already doing Zoom consultations, but obviously now 100%, and it's a powerful medium.
It's been a really interesting experience, because if you go back 18 months, I was going to say 12 months, but 12 months we were still in the midst of this. It's been going so long. But if you go back 18 months and you talk to people about doing remote consultations, a lot of people would come out and say they're unethical. You're not seeing the animal, etc. Having now, had to do remote consultations. The owner is in their own home. You're not with them, and they seem so much more relaxed and willing to sort of discuss things as well. You can see around the house, you can coach them through the Zoom, and we found it. We're busier than ever. We're fully booked now until the end of April. We've got 2-month waiting list.
Last week, a lady with a 4-year-old Labrador cross had been told by a very responsible vet that the dog had made a little snap, not breaking the skin, of her 10-month-old just crawling around a little boy son, and said, "Oh, you should euthanize this dog." And I had the privilege of watching the dog-child interactions for over an hour on Zoom, and I was quite certain that that should not be the approach, euthanasia, that this was a dog who just wanted to be left alone, which they're entitled to do, and the simple expediency of using the enclosed playpen where the child could be was also the dog's enclosed area, so like a giant run crate within the home that was alternated when mother couldn't be watching them both. The mother didn't witness this it wasn't even a bite threat. And so when her attention was away from the child and the dog, that one or other was separated, and a muzzle, and I'm pretty keen on muzzles at other times, and give the dog another chance, get through the next few months whilst the child is a bit chaotic and cannot be relied upon to do the right thing, and to build a controlling relationship over the dog, which a 2-3-year-old can achieve. And it, this client is so happy that the dog that predated her having the child is as much loved as the child, and probably won't ever have any more children. And that was a really happy outcome for her, and definitely a happy outcome for me.
Yeah, and it's I think that's one of the other things, is that on the basis of just an initial complaint, you mustn't prejudge people, because as you delve into that history and you learn so much more about the particular circumstances, and in some cases you can have something that looks initially quite innocuous, and then you realize that it's the opposite. It's much more serious than that. But in some cases it looks really bad, but as you go into it, you think, no, that's perfectly understandable, and that risk can be managed, and therefore we can proceed with it. But that's a nice hook into, because you've obviously done a lot of work with the Dangerous Dogs Act, defending dogs in particular. How did you end up in that? Was that just purely an extension because you were doing the behaviour consultations, or can you remember the first case you had to do?
Yeah, I do. Long ago, we had a politician, he's still alive actually, called Kenneth Baker.
Oh, yes.
And he knew about me, and he was the then Home Secretary, and there'd been a succession of reports of American pit bull terriers. It's not a British dog, these are American pit bull terriers, were becoming very popular at that time in the 60s, 70s, and were being used for fighting, I expect. So I was seeing quite numbers of them for dog-on-dog aggression. And I think it was very much more a social issue of the owners, not the dog. But anyway, I was making adverse comments about pit bull terriers, wishing that they didn't exist, and why can't people have Shih Tzus or Labradors if you want a big dog? But anyway, so the Home Office contacted me, and I contributed to the writing of the Dangerous Dogs Act, in a sense. I know, and it's forever on my conscience. And of course, as soon as it was instituted, and the wording of the act is type of, not breed, but type, because the Kennel Club, the others wouldn't accept that there is a breed, the American Pit Bull Terrier, which of course there is in America. American viewers will know this. Anyway, so breed-specific or type-specific legislation, even worse, was introduced in the UK. And immediately, the police, ably assisted, as it happens, by one of my not-so-favourite animal charities, the RSPCA, were seizing any old dog that looked like a boxer cross Labrador, any type, inverted commas, that was vaguely like a pit bull. There were all sorts of crosses. But so what? Even if it was a finest-looking purebred pit bull that was friendly and done nothing wrong, why should it be seized on the basis of its appearance? So, it was the worst kind of racism, and this time applied to a breed of dog, and potentially, of course, 3 other breeds of dogs. And it's still on the statute book in the UK. Thankfully, seizures are at a much lower level, but I will be in the witness box saying, this dog is friendly, this dog isn't a pit bull for 1, 2, 3, 4 right reasons. And I became incredibly unpopular, especially unpopular with the RSPCA. My instincts are, anybody who's a charity that says they do good things for animals, my instincts are to say, well, that's fine. But, they were attacking this as though the safety of the nation depended on it, and they're much more bigger dangers to society than these little dogs. And as it happens, the fashion for pit bull terriers is pretty well gone, and people want fluffy little labradoodle things nowadays, they carry a gun if they want to be safe on certain streets in London. A dog isn't going to protect you. So, dog fighting, whilst it does exist in certain quarters, certain national groups in the country, it isn't so widespread amongst the tougher parts of London. But I was drawn into this, and it became virtually 50% of my time was spent in and out of courts, defending people, lovely people, families who had their family pets seized. And I won't give you his name, but there was a particular RSPCA chief inspector who was lauding it and very persuasive, and had rehearsed his arguments about why these dogs were terribly dangerous. And one a crossbreed dog, I given a sort of shake toy, a fluffy toy like this, and it was and tug of war, and the chap said, that could be a child. And you could see the picture. Oh dear, we've got to kill this dog. He could rip a tile like it's ripping that toy. So I tend to be on the side of the underdog and would be of society, humans, homeless people. And it was these people were being attacked by the forces of the state through their dog, and they weren't getting help from the very society that should have been on the side of the animals. I think it's slightly reformed, and thankfully there are a lot of other charities.
Well, they've certainly been campaigning against the Dangerous Dogs Act for many years now.
They have, well, not many years, but about 6 years, they've changed their tune, but there's still a lot of euthanasias going on, and
so why
I don't leave. I'd be very careful who I leave money to, which charities I will choose to benefit from Roger Mugford's estate when I cop it.
So why do you think the RSPCA changed? I mean, you say it's 6 years ago. I can't.
Well, I think, thankfully, a drop in subscriptions, in membership. I think their income dropped markedly with the publicity that I and others generated, because they were on the wrong side, if you like. They weren't on the side of the animals. And on a number of issues, animal cruelty issues, and of course, the last month, some good news is that they have, with their new chief executive, taken the decision that they will not pursue prosecutions directly themselves. They will create dossiers, information, and hand it to the Crown Prosecution Service, who are professional lawyers and sensible people. So they will prepare cases of cruelty, if you like, on the basis of evidence, and then pass it up to the CPS, which is exactly what the police do. And it leaves the charity able to concentrate on really helping animals, which is what they were designed to do, and what the public, of course, think that they do.
No, absolutely. So
and of course, but it's not just the UK. We specific legislation in various parts of the US, and in Southern Ireland, 12 breeds are on the sort of dangerous dogs list, but being Irish, it just gets ignored. so there's a large number of people, some watching this podcast, I hope, that get extremely agitated about breed-specific legislation.
So I don't know if you remember, but it was early in the 90s, and I'll be able to work out exactly what year it was. We went to Slovenia together and gave some talks, and that was to try and prevent their government from passing breed-specific legislation, and we succeeded. That they didn't. But do you remember we went to go out bear watching, and we got lost?
Yes.
We made a phone call, and they said, we're not sure where we are, and they sort of said, you've strayed over the border. We suggest you come back because we're currently at war with Croatia.
I remember that there was another, these are brown bears, a mother separated from her baby over there, and we were in between, and that's not a good place to be.
No, live life to the full.
It was so beautiful. This is not a travel program you tuned into, but Slovenia is the most beautiful place. It is Switzerland. It is. Switzerland without without this many people.
You mean without the Swiss? Switzerland's lovely, but without as many rules as Switzerland. As I say, it's amazing because they do referendums on everything, don't they?
Good.
No. But anyway, I didn't realise that. Well, I said I didn't realise that you'd been involved in the original drafting of the legislation. Did I ever tell you the story?
Well, so it's partly guilt. We all make mistakes. And I was driven by, I owed it, and I made some lifelong friends by being rumpled of the bailey of the court, and as an expert witness. And I suffered for it financially, professionally, because people ganged up against me in Ireland as elsewhere because they didn't like the fact that someone like me would stand up and give evidence contrary to inverted commas the state.
So did I ever tell you the story with my finals, my public health finals? Because I as I said, we mentioned about the veterinary degree, which I struggled through, and we had public health, and around about that time the legislation hadn't come in then, but it was sort of in the offing. And my first year at university, I was told that after my first set of Viva, because we used to have exams so often at vet school, and the dean calls me in and he says, look, you've got to get your Viva technique sorted, because the things you find interesting, you decide that you're going to talk about in a Viva, but the things you find interesting are the things you know nothing about. You've got to stop doing that because you're not going to make it through. Well, come my finals in public health, I was asked the question, sort of, well, what sort of dog would I recommend for a childminder? And I thought, great. So, I never thought anyone would actually ask me anything about behaviour while I was at vet school. And it was the external. And I said a well-socialised Rottweiler, knowing full well that it was potentially provocative. But I thought, here, I've got something I can talk about. We can start going down it, whatever. And to my amazement, I was just completely blanked. And he asked me what the notifiable disease of fish were. No, in fish. Spring viremia in fish. And and the Viva went on, and I was asked various questions, and then I was told that it was over. And just as I was leaving, the external said, I think that was terribly irresponsible what you said about the dogs. Irresponsible, yeah. And I sort of turned to the internal, who was Peter Cripps, who's now at Liverpool. And I turned to him and I said, look, I said something, and the whole point of a Viva is if you don't agree with something, I should have the opportunity to defend it. And, I've just found out, just as I'm finishing the Viva, that, that you don't agree with it. I can justify that statement. And I said, I'd like that opportunity to defend. And I was literally standing there with the door half open, with the next candidate waiting to come in. You
should have changed the law.
Well, so we ended up, and the guy said, well, I used to work for the RAF and we never had a good Rottweiler, And I said, military working dogs are completely different. You don't understand what socialization is. And started, we had and I don't know if you remember the building at Langford, the old animal husbandry building. There's this sort of very narrow
Yes.
corridor. Well, of course, this is getting fairly heated. It's carrying all the way down the corridor. And, and Karen, who was in after me, I think she ended up with just a 10-minute viva because I'd gone 20 minutes arguing with the external. And I was told afterwards that external wanted you to fail, but they said, no, he defended his point and you have differences of opinion. That's absolutely fine. And one of the lecturers came by and said, well, that's a first. Usually we expect students to break down in tears in their finals, but no, you just pick a fight.
Well done. Well, no, you should. And incidentally, one of the finest courts that I think I've ever appeared in is Lincoln's Lincoln. The Crown Court of Lincoln. The Assize, the Lincoln Assize, which many poor person went through there for stealing a sheep and was hung in the square outside the court. So it's a most magisterial place. The other wonderful courts, for those of you who are interested in these things, is Chester Crown Court. Similarly, also an assize. That means goes way back. You can feel all of history there. And Lincoln Assize, I came by a dog called Humphrey, and he was a Staffy Cross, and he belonged to a gentleman in a wheelchair who had holes in his garden fence. And Humphrey, when he was a young puppy, would run out and take the clothes off little girls on their way to school. So after a warning from the local bobby, the dog was seized, and it went through the magistrates' court and the youth euthanasia ordered, and then appeal at the Crown Court. And I was asked to stand up as a witness for the defence. And Humphrey, if you're standing up on behalf of a dog called Humphrey, I'd like you to know that I'm going to condemn you for the rest of your natural life to live with Dr. Mugford, who will do with you as he wishes. And so Humphrey was condemned to live with me for an incredibly happy, rewarding 10 plus years. And he died 2 years ago. And I'm going to be all sad about Humphrey. But anyway, I've ended up with quite a few dogs that I defended, and the owner either wasn't appropriately the right person to keep the dog, but there's many kind people amongst the judiciary. I've got so much respect for, especially qualified judges, not so much the magistracy, and there's a lot of kindness out there. We had a few terrible iniquities and misjustices, miscarriages, but Humphrey was one where I thought, oh my God, what have I done now? I said nice things about this dog that chased cats and used to chase my cattle and was terrible. But within a very short time, he was a most perfect dog. But I was an eccentric, a different dog. And we've all had different dogs.
Oh, Humphrey was an eccentric, or you were an eccentric?
Yeah, no, Humphrey. I'm not an eccentric. I'm one of the most sensible people I know. I'll have you know. No.
You're saying about being hung for your sheep. If you become a freeman of the city of Lincoln, you have the right to drive your sheep up the high street. Well, it's one of the few rights that you have as a freeman of the city. So I had a client once who was a freeman, and he just told me that was one of the. He gets a note to say once a year he's allowed to drive his sheep up the city high street. Not that he's got any sheep.
Well, now I have to content myself. Well, the second best is I drive my cattle through the streets of Chertsey twice a year, once to and once from some land that's away from the farm. But it's a great, brings everything to a halt in this sort of sleepy Surrey wilderness, they call it.
I thought you were going to say you drive them down the M4, literally, rather than in the truck.
Actually, I did have a cow that escaped onto the M3 on a Friday, and it brought the London traffic leaving London at the peak time on a Friday at 3 p.m. And it fortunately never got to the local media that I was the owner of this cow that was seen running down the motorway. It brought everything to a halt, but it had a happy ending. It was Murray Grey, which is an Australian breed, and so cow lived happily ever after. So, listeners, viewers, don't take up farming. It's a mad thing to do.
It's a way of life. It's like being a vet, it's a way of life. And as long as you see it as a way of life rather than a way of getting rich, you'll be fine.
But to me, it is, I think I'm repeating myself, it's an age thing. There's a lot of tension associated with, if you like, being a social worker, which is essentially what one is sometimes in doing animal behavior therapy. And it's stressful, and my farming is a great relief from that stress of dealing with people. So it's highly recommended. Gets you out and about, keeps you jumping in and out of tractors and being gored by angry, newly calved cows, and all these other sorts of things that happen to me.
So anyway, so let's talk about some of the products that you've been involved with.
Oh my God.
So I want to know, actually, this is terrible, but I know you well enough. You'll say no. I want to know about some of the failures, the things that you thought, brilliant. Failures.
I'm naturally attracted to anything that's going to end the issue of dog dirt in society, right? Dog shit too, the less polite. So pooper scoopers. And from the time I first formed the company 42 years ago, I've had inventors, and I myself have been trying to come up with the ultimate solution to picking up dog dirt and things like that. And I haven't succeeded. And so there's one little scoop called an arm's length, which we commercialized, which is a sort of shovel arrangement. And very recently, a fantastic American lady called Karen Rosensteel has brought a product to me that is made from a particular type of paper where the wet shit doesn't come through, and it's called dog scoop or something like that. And Americans are so polite about something as earthy as dog shit, and I do. But anyway, the economics of it don't quite work but it's a fantastic concept. It's made from paper that has not been exposed to all the nasty chemicals in those papers, and it's just really nice to pick up dog shit. Anyway, the economics of it, because if you go to a baby store, you can buy 50 bags costing about 5p, 7 cents, half the price of this bit of old paper. So, and people really shouldn't be using plastic, because obviously microplastics and they're carbon consuming, and they wreck the oceans and kill wildlife. That's my consistent, reliable failure is, and I've got a really bad eye for a commercially successful pooper scooper.
But I just yesterday I was going over the fields with one of my sons, and I couldn't get over the number of plastic bags with dog poo in it, and I'm thinking, you've
hanging in trees.
Yeah. Now some people say, well, they tie it in trees, that way when they come back they pick it up and whatever. And I'm thinking, well, there's a lot of people who are, they're just putting it at face height for whatever, I know, advertising they've got. Well, you can now do these genetic tests, can't you, find out who it is? But I think it's, I'd rather see dog poo on the ground than dog poo in a bag, because as you say, the bag itself is not biodegradable. And
I think is it a wonderful comedy sketch by Tracy Ullman or something about this very thing. It'll come to me. And just taking the piss out of dog owners who do just this and spread plastic all over the place. So anyway, it is one of the serious downsides. We talked. I mean, I'm inspired by a problem. Let's solve it. And behind me, this fine-looking fellow here is wearing a muzzle that we only sell 1 million a year of those little suckers. And it's being
the muzzle or the halty?
The muzzle. This little chap here.
Okay. Yes.
That's the basketball muzzle.
Basketball.
We got some fantastic developments. I can't share them with you because they'll be copied and I've got to get patents sorted. Some developments on the muzzle front that make it even more dog and user friendly and almost like a fashion item, because until we can make muzzles, if like socially acceptable, dogs that just might bite, that just might pick up poison in the street, or take away throwaways, or self-mutilate, we've got to make muzzles for all these different requirements. And having a muzzle that prevents a dog doing tissue damage to another dog, it's usually dog and dog aggression that we use muzzles, then it allows behavior modification to be given time and a chance to work, where you cannot risk the safety of the other dog that maybe is a stooge dog that is part of the training therapy program for the aggressive dog. So, muzzles, to me, 1 million muzzles a year means 1 million fewer dog bites and dog injuries and the rest. So, but and the little old Halti there, it's in its 5th edition now, 5th variations in design, are all getting, one hopes, better. And I've got a 6th, which I can't show to you because it hasn't been patented yet. But you can tell us, viewers, listeners, that you were the first to hear about the hint of Roger's got something even better than a Halti. And it's even easier and even more affordable, and takes all the skill out of training a dog to walk nicely on the lead, which does make me unpopular in certain circles, because you watch all these podcasts, how to train your dog to not pull on the lead, and so many people try and then fail, and their dog still pulls on the lead. So, and then Mugford comes along and ruins it by creating a product that even idiots can look good at. But that is my purpose, is to simplify dog training and to take the failure out of it, take the skill out of it, if possible.
So one of the new things I know you've got that you can hopefully talk about, but I haven't seen it yet, but for my postdocs, Carla, is the pup-pod. Now you dropped me an email very kindly and sort of said, I've got this, I want some people to try it out. And I say, because Carla's in the middle of testing a load of dogs and she's got a couple of dogs herself, I said, right, Carla will be the person. I haven't seen it. So you want to just talk us through the pup-pod and the idea behind it?
There is a link on my phone.
Wrong camera.
Okay.
You're pointing it to the right.
Okay,
there we go. Yeah.
There is a link to my pup-pod app, and Dave is lying to my right here. He'd love to be a demonstrator. Would you like that, Dave? Dave, by the way, is a Korean meat dog farm dog, and he.
Right, I'm going to try and give a running commentary for people who are just getting the audio version. I'm not going to give the running commentary that we saw your navel, but
there you are. There's Dave.
There's Dave.
Okay, now here's his pup-pod. So
which looks like a big white iPhone speaker or something.
Yeah, and this is the toy that he has to manipulate. And there you are, Dave. Dave knows that's a very nice association. But I have to switch on the app, and it says play now. So I'm going to hit the play button, and something may happen, or it may not. So I have to carry on through the.
So the toy was this sort of round thing that you've placed on the floor, which it looks like if the dog stuck his teeth into it, would cause all sorts of problems.
And it says start the game. So I start the game, and I could be, and it just went tinkle winkle.
Yep.
And and Dave just gave it a little.
Can you tilt it down?
Touch. And
tilt the camera down a little bit.
Yep.
That's up. There we go. Right. Dave wagging his tail. Oops. Now I've got this. I've got the thing on the table.
Yeah.
It's like the generation game or golden shop. Down.
I'm waiting for it to tinkle.
Can you tilt it down, or we're going up again? Oh, something went beep. So now
I can't hear it when it went beep.
I've just got the bit of floor.
Dave.
So
Dave has to work. Dave has to work it, and it's going to deliver some food from the feeder over there. There's a treat for the dog.
Okay.
So basically, I can now. He's woken up, and he's going to hit it again. Don't know if you can see. Yep, and he's waiting for now. So we can introduce complex contingencies.
I tell you what, this
site, and we can introduce delays, of course.
I was going to say, this would be really good for the stuff that we do for impulse control on dogs.
Yeah. He's going to get another treat. There we go, another treat. And so I've supported the inventor of this, who's a really great.
I've got a picture of your hand.
I don't know where. Okay, there. You got me. Yeah. Okay. No, so it's just canine cognition in action, and we control the game through a smartphone, and of course we can do that anywhere in the world. We can literally be the other side of the world, and I can give Dave start the game, end the game, make it more complex than currently. It's on a fixed ratio, 10-second fixed interval. But I could have a variable ratio. I could make it, sometimes 10 seconds, sometimes 50 seconds, etc. I can change the sound output, and all the time I can watch on my smartphone what Dave is up to. So let me just feed a video. I'm just going to open the video, feed the video, so I can watch Dave. It should come up. Oh, there he is. So I can see Dave at work on his feeder. So again, literally anywhere in the world. And apart from anything, it's a spy in my house, so I can see what my pet's up to. I can give him verbal commands. And we all the time have an objective record of what he gets up to. So it makes, if you like, cognition experiments very manageable for the pet owner, because it's a very affordable device, but for the researcher who can gain access to these data, and you look at the influence of, I don't know, suggested that somebody said that diet affects attentiveness. Well, you can feed a different diet and look at his score rate. You can look at the effects of palatability on the treat, which is given out by the feeder, and so on and so on and so on. You can look at dogs with what you believe is sort of deterioration and cognitive decline. To what extent can they learn or not learn new contingencies? So it's a very powerful research tool, but more than anything, it's fun.
So who is, I was going to say, who's going to get access to this data? Do people, when they sign up, do they automatically, is it sort of said that their data will be shared, or it's an opt-in, opt-out? How's that work?
They've got to opt in to have it shared. Yeah, if they were part of a research group, say at Lincoln University, so it wouldn't be in the public domain. But no. I can access my dog's data, of course, myself, and that in itself is interesting. Yeah. So it's early days, really only launched just in this new year, and primarily.
And of course, people are traveling all over the world, and they need to be able to see their dog from afar. Timing is everything.
But it does make even going to work bearable, but there's going to be an awful lot of dogs that are going to have, inverted commas, separation issues. We talk about it all the time, don't we? So they've been used to having 12 months of their dog's company, and then I wonder what he or she is doing now. And Dave is busy as anything, working away in the background. Now, Dave is not the brightest spark on the fire. He came rather late out of a dog meat cage farm in Korea, and he definitely missed out on early socialization and mental stimulation. But
so you literally
if
picked
Dave
him up
can
in
do
Korea.
it, Animals Asia, actually. HSI, Humane Society International, were more influential in trying to raise the awareness of the dreadful eating dogs business in Asia. And Yeah, so I brought 9 dogs over, one of which I'd hoped would become a medical detection dog, and she is indeed now performing as a detection dog in that fantastic charity. And until we can raise the respect and role of dogs in Korean society, they'll carry on doing dreadful things to them.
I mean,
and it's the same in China.
How big a problem is it in Korea then?
Well, it has been. There were up to when I began this working with HSI, we estimated 4 million dogs in meat farms, and at the same time there are 8 to 9 million pet dogs owned in Korea. So it's a very doggy society, and the very people who keep a pet poodle in a high-rise apartment in Seoul could also go at some of the particular festivals. Dave is eating too much. He's working too hard at it, being too successful. I'm going to stop the game. And now he's on an extinction curve. And I have to remove the manipulandum, the pup-pod, because otherwise he would. There's an awful lot of dog meat eaten in Korea, and it's a very sophisticated society, very well educated, more internet savvy than any other, and yet they still do it. But it's an old people problem. We've got to get rid of old people. No, it's people like me in Korea who eat dogs. And
you were saying that so somebody could have their little Shih Tzu in the apartment, and then they go down and eat a dog.
Yeah, because they're told that there are health benefits in those hot Korean sunshine days, summer days. They really believe that it enables them to cope with hot weather. But in China, in rural China, it is more of a simply a practical source of nutrition. I mean, they will eat dogs, they will eat anything, as we know. But attitudes are changing so rapidly. I've been going to China for 30 years, sometimes lecturing, often on business. And I'm pleased to say that things are really changing there. They even have some sort of farm animal welfare awareness, and not yet quite compassionate well farming levels of animal welfare in terms of the pig industry. But I think that in terms of where you can focus on doing the greatest good, you'll do the greatest good where things are at their worst, which is obviously in Asia for me. And second to Asia, I would say, is America. And sorry, American audiences, but what happens on beef lots, and what happens in the pig industry, what happens in transportation in the US and in the poultry industry is awful. And I'm just as virulent in talking about animal rights to an American audience as I am to a Chinese audience.
So, I mean, a lot of my colleagues moved to North America who are interested in animal welfare, because they say it was a big frontier, an area that needed to, there's a lot to be done because of the way that meat is produced over there in a lot of places, not all, but the big industry, and as you say, particularly some of the pigs. But I'm trying to work out which year we're in. Last year I examined a PhD thesis looking at the ecological paw print of dogs in China, Japan and the Netherlands. And it's a fascinating piece of work, because basically they looked at how much land was being given up to produce food and actually how many humans you could feed in that country. And it's sort of, it was quite concerning,
Well, I think I can help you because I used to work in the pet industry. Mars Pedigree make a big chunk of animal feed for dogs and cats. And we reckon that something of the order 20% of the available protein calories are donated to the pet industry.
Wow.
So that's a fifth, sorry, get the maths wrong. No, the total consumed calories, it'll be less than that. But
let me just just keep talking. I'm going to just try and find the thesis because it's up on the shelf here.
Lovely, yeah.
And I just wanted to, because there was some fascinating figures. I didn't know we were going to chat this. So hold on, keep talking, say something, sing a song.
So pets really had better be good for people and human society, because they sure are consuming a lot of the world's resources, and people resources, people like me and people like Danny. I've been talking about you behind your back, Danny. And what I was saying is that dogs had really better be good for people and society. They better have some important raison d'etre, because they do make an environmental impact. We talked about dog shit and plastic bags hanging from trees, but as a food resource, and of course I'm a keen nature lover, so this time of the year I shout about people letting their dogs off lead to distress ground nesting birds and wildlife, and not to mention chasing my sheep. But as a social mediator, keeping society sane, that's the big purpose of pet ownership. And but we've got, of course, there are moves towards vegan diets for dogs, which are entirely practicable, and insect-based diets, which are also entirely nutritiously acceptable as well.
So, I mean, these are some of the figures that they came out with, and the guy's actually a professor at Maastricht University, and he did this as a second PhD at Aberystwyth. But and as you say, it's when you go to a country like China, and the numbers then just add up. So, per capita average size dog, Netherlands, ecological paw print in hectares that are being used, dietary. In the Netherlands, 0.9 to 3.6 hectares. In China, 0.82, but possibly up to over 4 hectares.
Per dog?
Yeah, that's per capita average size dog. Lifetime of one dog then becomes 10 to 44 hectares in the Netherlands, or about 10 to 50 in China. And then when you think total dogs, it becomes, anything up to about 6.5 million hectares being in the Netherlands, but between 22 and 115 million hectares in China. And
there's at least 50 million companion dogs in China now.
Because
from zero when Mao Zedong was around. To now, so in the space of 40 years, from nothing to 50 million dogs.
But it's just, you suddenly think that's an awful lot of farmland, that's being given up. I didn't know the figure of a fifth of farmland being used in pet food. And,
no, I don't.
It's
fifth. There's not fifth of that's for animal proteins.
Oh, animal. Yeah, okay, animal proteins.
Sorry, and it could be from any source, from fish, from meat, cow. It's something, and that's why responsible companies like Mars will say that they've got to be looking at alternative ways of feeding dogs, which consume fewer hectares, and obviously soy-based diets were very popular, but the general consumer, the whole drift is towards all meat diets, raw diets, cereal free. Well, if it's not containing cereal, what does it contain? An excessive protein intake. So worsening the impact of dogs on the general world we live in. So Greta Thunberg, I think you should know this.
Yeah. So have you ever launched a dog food?
No. Oh yes, I did years ago. Yeah.
I was saying,
it was called Eagle. Yes, that's right. Years ago. Yeah, Eagle. Yes, that's right. It wasn't to my liking. Should we say? I could think of better things to do with life. I'd rather invent a better Halti or some of the other inventions I've got up my sleeve. Watch this space, folks. Done right. So I briefly reverted to type, it's a very, very competitive area that it's not good for my mental health.
Yeah. So, I mean, we mentioned pooper scoopers, but what other things do you think sort of you thought were absolutely brilliant, but for whatever reason haven't taken off to the degree that you think they should? Anything else?
Yeah, numerous toys. One of my great projects was I wanted to get out of plastics. We in China and especially in China, we got so many people beavering away in factories. Like literally, I probably got 1,000 Chinese workers creating company developable products. And what could be better than bamboo? Bamboo is a renewable resource that grows. It's sort of 1 or 2 meters a year, and it produces these fantastic cylinders that I could turn into toys. And I am a big backer of Animals Asia and support their bear sanctuary in Chengdu in the middle of China, and also in Vietnam. They rescue spectacled bears, and so I saw these bears playing with bamboo toys stuffed with food and insects, and they manipulate them and drill holes in them. So I created a line of toys for dogs made out of natural bamboo. Oh dear. And then and also bird nesting boxes and bird feeders and this and that and the other, and of course bamboo has nasty fibers, quite sharp fibers, which would get stuck in dogs' teeth. And I should have thought of that, shouldn't I? So good idea. And I spent a year extolling the virtues of bamboo, and everyone around me thought it was such a good idea and so environmentally appropriate, and not containing plastics, and also giving jobs to, at that time, 10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago, a very economically depressed Vietnam. Wonderful people, by the way. And it didn't work out. So keep thinking. So, but overall, most of my ideas are successful. I'm laughing. I've got 40 people working for me in across 4 continents. We've got an Australian division, the US division, the China section, and pretty soon we'll have to have because of Brexit, we'll have to have a
European distribution centre. Yeah.
Take jobs away from the UK, and we'll just become a minor little player on the edge of Europe. And we'll have a European DC, and I've got 6 nationalities currently work for me: Brazil, Portuguese, Mexican, Chinese, Australian, and Americans. They're almost like Brits, aren't they? It's so we're so multinational, and this stupid government. Is it political comments allowed on this?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
Podcast. It's so awful. They're so anti-business. But anyway, I digress. You can imagine, listener, what I really think about this government.
Well, I think a lot of people share your opinion, and yeah. Anyway, we won't go there. What about the other side of things? Are there things that have really taken off that you were surprised by? Thinking, well, it's a nice idea, but
yeah. Well, it was the I suppose that the muzzles have surprised us, and we've got new things coming. Then there's a pet corrector, and just a simple little aerosol, which I may have one here to hand to demonstrate. I don't know. No, there isn't one. But it makes a sound, and if you say to your cat, I'm upsetting my dog just doing it there. It's quite an aversive sound, and I'm very into balanced dog training. That means that that desirable behaviours are rewarded, and undesirable ones are either not rewarded, which is the withdrawal of reward, which is a pretty sort of punishment, or that you use an active punishment. Now, what sort of active punishments? Well, the old ways: whack the dog, kick the dog, and things, throw water over them. In America, give them electric shocks. I think we must get talking about electric shocks, Danny. So it's about as far as I would go in terms of being an aversive with a dog, probably not with a cat, with a dog. And it's a very powerful tool for certain situations, not all situations, not all dogs, certainly. And we sell a lot of pet correctors. And there's a humaniac brigade out there who said, oh no, you mustn't use an aversive, it's really cruel, you should use only reward-based methods. I'm sorry, you've got to be balanced. If a child is out of control and insists on putting its hand on a hot plate on a cooker, it's going to burn itself, and it will learn from that moment that it doesn't touch hot plates on cookers. And that has, time out is a punishment, as a for instance, and simply looking away, withdrawal of attention is a punishment for many socially driven dogs. Americans more than Brits love pet correctors, and again, millions are sold. One hopes responsibly used, because Americans are more likely to use aversive methods than their European counterparts, which is a worry. But at least I've given them a tool that is not in the aisle at the pet store in America devoted to animal training, and it's just cabinet after cabinet of shock collars. Some of the big chains. Now, one chain, Petco, have just discontinued selling shock collars, which is really, I'll take a small amount of credit for that. There's another chain that still does have shock products, and I think gradually folks in America are waking up. But then again, if you remember on January the 6th, those people who were storming the Capitol, those are the very same people that want to zap and want quick results. So
I don't know if you know, but a few weeks ago, it seems that the people who are in support of shock collars launched a big campaign against me and Jonathan.
Yes, I know.
So did you get one of their emails then as well, or?
No, I've heard about it through other routes, but no, they didn't contact me because they know that you and I are in cahoots.
I don't know, but it's a really interesting turn. So just for people who are listening, so basically anyone who either cited our work as a scientist, or who because we did some work looking at the use of shock collars versus using positive reinforcement, and found that basically you could, and we worked with the Electronic Collar Manufacturers Association. So this was the industry, and they said, right, okay, this is the test that we want. And we said, right, okay, and then we got a group from the ABDT, and we seem to get at least as good results training wise from using the positive reinforcement. So anybody who cited the paper, they got somebody from New Zealand to write a criticism of the stuff. And again,
I see the criticism.
We're in the process of submitting the rebuttal, because they're just wrong on all sorts of things. So that will come out. And then anybody who sort of also mentioned our work on social media, they seem to be contacting as well. And it's interesting. You describe yourself as a balanced trainer, because it's one of the balanced training organizations that is really sort of seems to be backing the electronic collar manufacturers on this. I'm not sure if it is the ECMA, but it's this organization that promote the fact that they take on these difficult causes like it seems smoking, whatever. They just want deregulation of everything. And it's been a really interesting experience. I mean, people have reached out to me and said sort of, whoa, I just want you to know I've got this. And if anything, I think it's probably backfired in so much as more people seem to be reading our papers as a result. But it's a really interesting twist that sort of, I'm there as a scientist, and I cannot offer an opinion, and I can have a personal opinion, but as a scientist, I'm prepared to change my personal opinion in light of evidence. And they just don't get that idea. They say, well, no. This, you're anti, therefore your research is biased. No, I can have an opinion. People have opinion on things. Any scientist does, but it's this use of these influential organizations, these lobbyists, basically, in order to. And there was even a question raised in Parliament a few weeks ago by one of the MPs saying, that he questioned DEFRA and said, this, this person has said that they don't agree with the use of collars, and then they did this research, and DEFRA basically replied and said, and we went through the normal processes and we are very happy with the research, so shut up. But you just think this sort of political, well, maybe because I live in university, I'm just not used to that sort of political battle, and people just want to misrepresent things so badly.
Well, just bear in mind there are big bucks at stake,
yeah,
big commercial interests, and I'm a practical hands-on trainer, and I think, inverted commas, the very expression reward-based training is stupid, and because that's on one extreme, and these other people we were talking about are on the other, and if I want to, as we do, I've got 8 pet sheep, which are darlings out there, and and they reliably attack dogs. There's no better aversive than an aggressive sheep, and we may use a tossed tin can with a couple of pebbles to land beside the dog, and we're having already taught recall, reward-based methodology to a reliable, the dog comes back on the long line, a 10-meter line or a 20-meter line. So you do preliminary training, and then you go amongst the sheep, and it's not difficult. And there's a high degree. So they will cite livestock hunting as being one of the justifications for using shock collars. You don't have to go that route. This lovely old dog, Dave here, that silly Korean, he touched. I was taking a rescued corgi dog for a walk with Dave, and Dave had an electric shock on his tail. He touched a electric fence used for horses, and he immediately attacked the corgi, this old 12-year-old darling rescue corgi, and he'd never done this before. He's very sociable, but in other words, sudden, unexpected, painful shock is blamed on something, anything that is local in time or in space. And so they're looking for an explanation. And it's just the same with a shock administered via a collar, and really for barking or for all these other ridiculous things, and enclosing dogs in spaces, which is a very American way because of the design of suburban houses where they're not allowed to put fences around their property. But America's catching on now. There are alternative ways, and I'll take some credit for presenting those alternative ways, and it can't all be about lovey-dovey reward-based training. And I did have somebody working for me, a graduate, and I found him trying to teach a dog not to chase sheep with my pet sheep, just using reward-based methods. And I said, look, he wasn't even letting my sheep attack the dog, and he no longer works for me, and it was painful to watch, because this is just a waste of the client's time and building up false hopes. As we repeated earlier, we've got to work on the basis, professionals, of producing positive outcomes, positive in this case, not chasing sheep, and so we must use balanced training methods. Reward only is fine if you're doing clicker training for dancing to music, he'll work to music, and all these funny things that people do with their dogs, agility, which I love watching but would hate doing myself. But sometimes there has to be a discouragement, and then it becomes a matter of degree. And as I say, your voice and your personal behavior and your look orientation is a profound. You've written papers on the subject of animal expression and the relationship of human grimace and expression, which dogs are very attentive to, aren't they? The smile, the grimace.
Absolutely. And I think that the one of the issues, and whilst I'm listening, and and I wouldn't say I agree with you entirely, but we can agree to disagree. We've known each other for long enough. But I do think that one of the issues with the use of positive reinforcement is people, when they say, I only use positive reinforcement, and I say, if somebody says that, that tells me that they don't understand what punishment is, because the absence of the reward is a negative punishment. And if you don't acknowledge that you are using punishment, even if it's just negative punishment, you're ignoring a large part of the training and the learning that is going on when you're using those rewards. Because using continuous reinforcement the whole time is certainly not the solution, and that creates all sorts of issues in its own right. Just last week, the case that we had was, the person had been given advice for their dog that had been was showing aggression to them, and they were told to use treats to distract the dog. Well, basically they were training the dog to become more and more aggressive, and they were now only using the best treats when the dog had the worst behavior, and so the dog was now showing the worst behavior. And they actually recorded in the diary day that they gave us the data for, there were 53 incidents in a day. And you think, that's not an easy
that's an amazing data to be harbored.
And when we worked out what was going on, we sort of talked them through the process and saying, the problem with what is happening is the dog is making not the associations you think. And so we made the judgment call of, right, when the dog is on the sofa with you and he's not growling, that's when you're going to drop in the best rewards. And with very, very quickly, the dog has started to turn around, because it's a very smart dog and he's going to respond to the rewards. But as I said, there's a danger that people want to take the moral high ground. And I do agree with you that people do oversimplify things, and that's not very helpful. When people say, well, I only use rewards, and as I said, you are using punishment if you're using food, because if you're not giving the dog the food, then by definition it's probably getting punished in that situation.
I love look at your interview or podcast with Jean Nichols Donaldson. And she's obviously a very good trainer, and she said a lot of very sensible things. And I think that it's different for a trainer who's dealing with pet dogs, and usually pet juvenile dogs is in a very different situation than you, or dare I say where we've got long established behaviours which are having profoundly damaging impact, and people have to work to a rather demanding timetable. They want the dog fixed fairly quickly.
So there are also issues, with a problem behavior, we have a wider responsibility to society. So you do have to look at containing the issue, and certainly in some situations you just say, well, no, your dog shouldn't be off the lead in those situations. That does prevent the problem in that situation. But anyway, we digress. Well, I don't know whether we do digress.
No, these are very important issues. Things are getting better. The bottom line is, in the world of dog training, things are getting better. I've got some of my least favorite books here. Do you remember this woman?
Dog Training My Way. Yes.
Barbara Woodhouse. When I started this work, it was all about choke chains. Choke chains are out in a British pet store. You won't find a choke chain. You certainly won't find spike collars. Still in the US, a lot of my focus, that normally over a third of the year I'd be working in the States, down the aisle of any named store, which I won't name, because they're now carrying my products, you will find choke chains and spike collars and those shock collars we were referring to earlier. So it's a big focus of things to do in America, and yet some of the best dog trainers that you have been to visit and that I count as serious friends, they're all aghast at it, but they haven't sort of got through to these
it's amazing
buyers and providers and little town somewhere or other, upstate Pennsylvania. It's as though they're in a different world, and they haven't heard what the Pam Reeves and Jean Donaldson have been saying for the last 30 years.
Yeah, I took my sons with me to the States a couple of years ago, and it was just sort of, one of them was on his gap year and the other one had just finished his GCSE, so it was a great chance for us to go away for a while.
Good.
I can remember in one city we went into Walmart, and they were just blown away that there's this counter with, semi-automatic weapons on it, and they're just sort of, hang on, this is like Asda in the UK. Yep, there's a whole section on guns and bullets and all sorts. It's just sort of,
so,
whoa, they didn't realize it was quite that free.
Any Americans listening to this podcast, we love your country.
Oh yes,
but and we're doing our best from a great distance to.
But as you say, there's lots of people there trying to sort of get things to change, but they're. Yeah, no, I like to consider myself fairly liberal, but I don't think people should have free access to being able to abuse animals or other humans necessarily.
No.
Way, but...
So we're living in an imperfect world, and not everything is fine in this United Kingdom either. So there's still a lot of issues to be tackled. One of my current beefs is the very large number of usually East European, but from South Europe to strays, waifs, feral dogs being imported and then, inverted commas, sold as pets. It used to be that the Dogs Trust was bringing in all sorts of street dogs from Dublin and Southern Ireland, and at least they put a lot of investment in each individual dog, and they wouldn't rehome it until it had been brought to some sort of standard. But some of the dogs that are coming from Romania and beyond, Bulgaria, Ukraine, used to be just Spain and Greece. We're talking lorry loads of dogs, and some of the inverted commas charities saying, well, it's better than running around on the streets being hit by cars. There's a nice three-legged dog here, and there's a wild dog there, and they're just such unsuitable dogs. Many of them carrying diseases which are new to the United Kingdom veterinary profession.
It's an interesting one because we see quite a lot, and it's a really interesting, I think, psychology to the people that they genuinely believe they're doing a good thing by rescuing those dogs and taking them off the streets, and basically they're being then put into homes that are, some of them, that are totally unsuitable. The dogs are completely stressed out because they're used to wandering free. And when I first worked in Plymouth, the couple who were 2 doors down from us, they were from Liverpool, and the thought of leaving their dog at home during the day, they both worked at the hospital as nurses, and the thought that you would leave your dog locked up all day to them was just cruel. So every day they went to work, they let the dog out on the street, and when they came home, the dog was sitting at the gate. And there was I don't know if it still goes on in Liverpool, but it was very much a sort of culture in that sort of area that was the way that you did it. Now, I'm not saying that everyone should be letting their dogs on the street, but you can see where they're coming from. But this idea that dogs that have been on the street for 7 years, and some of these dogs are massive, a 55-kilo dog, and suddenly it goes into a flat and it's having problems. And
there is a cachet amongst a certain segment of mind, posh North London, Hampstead, Champagne socialist country. There's a real cachet to own a Romanian rescue, inverted commas. And in Canada, in Toronto, it's the shipping up of Caribbean strays. Okay. There's an enormous trade in
but that's the thing,
dogs from the islands.
And I think that's the other thing is, some of them are genuine rescues, but others, people are just making they're breeding the dogs in puppy farms and then saying, oh, these are all rescues and whatever, and we'll ship them off to the UK, and people are making massive amounts of money for it. I agree. It is. I think it is a big issue.
But it is, and there are a dear friend and neighbour is called Peter Egan. He has put so much effort and energy and some money into working on education and resources. Sarajevo, he's got a link up with the lady who's doing rescue work in Sarajevo. So not just shipping dogs from there to here, but doing something about the problems on the ground. And I've got 2 Romanian workers for me on the farm, and last year before lockdown, so 2019, missed the year, when we were allowed to move, we sent a party of 8 to Romania to rebuild the shelter, but with a very much a focus on outreach and neutering, spay neutering.
I don't know whether Brexit's going to affect on this. Do you? I mean, do you think
it will? It's just the European Union now are opening up their funds and are being persuaded that outreach programs to East European pet care.
I meant about the dogs coming to the UK, whether or not there'd be a.
Regrettably,
the other week I couldn't send a copy of one of my books to my niece in Denmark because it got held up in customs, and they weren't convinced that it was a gift. And so apparently it's in the process of being returned to me. And even though my wife sent copies of the emails exchange, etc., they apparently ruled that no, we're not convinced, so it can't, can't enter the country. Just think, this is a 10-quid book. This is ridiculous.
And it's not just the Denmark; it's the Northern Ireland. One of my engineers lives in Derry, London Derry. And we can't get samples to and fro from Northern Ireland. Lord Frost, are you listening to this? By the way, other viewers, that's a crazy English politician.
Yeah, but do you think it will affect this sort of import of dogs from Eastern Europe, or do you think people are getting around the rules?
I don't know. I mean, that's not to say we should be helping in those societies, in those countries.
No.
And there are many good-minded Scandinavians, Dutch, German, who are joining with the Brits in doing what we've always done, to do our best for dogs. But I don't think we serve the best interests of British dog owners by shipping these semi-feral, unowned dogs from here to there. We should be really focusing on supporting charities that work within Romania, Bulgaria, and these other countries, and that is, I know, has gone through the European bureaucracy, Brussels bureaucracy, and they are releasing funds and supporting projects that are there, and that's what the European Union was meant to be. Really looking for a collective improvements, not just on a country by country basis. Hey.
Your cough seems to be getting worse. I hope you're all right. You haven't had COVID, have you?
No. It's gin and tonic time, folks.
No, that's
this is past 6 o'clock, so this is not gin and tonic.
I will. One question I did want to ask you, though.
Oh my God.
We're still talking about products. Have there been any that got away? You think, damn, I wish I had gone with that one. Just out of interest.
No. My approach to working with collaborators, we get a lot of inventors come by, and sometimes I have to give, but none have. I didn't turn anybody down. I really don't believe so. And most of the designs that we have are my designs, and I'm so tempted to show you one of my greatest inventions yet, but I can't because but I have such fun inventing things, working with engineers, working with patent lawyers, working with my Chinese associates who are amazing. And pity they're not free like we are, but never mind. It's. I think we can reach. I mean, I used to see 3-4 cases a day and work my little butt off when I started my behaviour practice. And I would running up anything 200-300 miles a day in rushing around the country seeing A to B. That was no life. I can now reach thousands and hundreds of thousands of people through my products and solve those pulling problems and the like. I'll tell you another lovely story. I won't give you his name, but he's local to here. He rather carelessly lost his arm. His right arm was in an industrial injury, so this was only a few months ago. And they had a beautiful, beautiful American bulldog bitch, absolutely temperamentally beautiful, but only he was strong enough to take it for walks. His wife was not strong enough, and it pulled like a train. And we're talking 50 or so kilos of really beautiful muscle. He had brought the dog to me for assessment with a view to it being rehomed. Could I think of finding it a new home? Where could he go to? Because he was worried about the Dangerous Dogs Act and breed-specific legislation as well. And so we kitted him out with a walking belt and with one of my double-ended training leads and with a head collar and with a harness. And he just walked away. And it's simple training, 2 points control. And he's able to walk that dog. And it is the biggest, happiest man in town. Although I felt guilty charging him a consultancy fee, which he insisted on paying. But primarily, it was just the product. So any trainer worth their salt could have achieved exactly the same outcomes without the need to have a PhD or the Roger Mugford sort of celebrity stuff that can be so annoying and getting in the way of forming good relationships with clients. That a case like that gets me right here.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work.
No, that's sort of, as I said, the area that I've really focused on is trying to make things as simple as possible for clients.
Yes.
And looking after the animal's well-being at the same time. So thank you very much. I didn't actually give you that much of an introduction, but I'm sure everybody knows you.
Go on my website, championofanimals.com, and you'll find all about my bad side. And listen to me tomorrow on BBC Radio Scotland. I'm on at 11 o'clock.
Well, this won't be edited by then, so it will have passed.
There's a local radio station near you that has my dulcet tones.
It's lovely to catch up with you.
You too.
And well, as I said, when this is all over, I owe lots of people a drink for having a chat with me, as I said, and we'll be able to chat over things again, I hope. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it. All the best, Roger.
Enjoy your dogs.
Yeah. Bye now.